Today on Off the Clock, we are welcoming back our celebrity guest host, Chrissy Heyne with the AG Collaborative. We're going to continue our conversation on employee engagement. Today, we're going to focus on the practical of how to move the needle when it comes to engagement.
Welcome to Off the Clock, the webcast of employment attorneys at Miller Johnson, where we discuss what is happening in the HR world and provide practical insight and advice.
What's the secret sauce behind improving employee engagement?
We've heard that quote, people don't quit jobs, they quit managers, and the research really backs that up. 50% of people leave a job just to get away from their manager. And
Wow.
65% of people say they would pick a better boss over a pay raise.
50% leave because of their manager.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to do a little PSA now
Oh,
because,
fun.
again,
Okay.
I am a lawyer after all.
Yes.
Every once in a while, people want to hear something lawyerly. So here's my lawyerly PSA before we get to the really
Okay.
fun stuff. Same thing with union organizing. So I mentioned in the last episode, we're seeing this huge rise in union organizing efforts and successful union organizing efforts. The number one reason people will join a union is a bad supervisor.
Wow.
So it's that direct link for so many people, especially in larger organizations, let's be honest, right? Sometimes the only contact they have with the company.
Yes.
What is a company after
Right,
all?
exactly.
It's a group of human beings.
Exactly.
Who are the human beings they interact with? Their supervisors, or maybe one up from there, their coworkers and their supervisors.
Yeah.
So that's also a huge risk factor when we talk about union organizing, as well as almost every kind of legal claim there is, to be honest with you.
I'm going to add that statistic to my work.
Yes.
Because I didn't know that about unions.
Oh, yes. And it sounds about right.
Yeah, it
doesn't
does.
it?
Yeah,
When
it
you
makes
think
sense.
about people being treated fairly
Ton
and
of
with
sense,
respect and as a human being and all of those things, the supervisor has so much control over that. But also supervisors, managers have so much control over disability issues, health issues in the workplace, discrimination issues, promotion, right? Decisions, scheduling decisions, the things that really impact people's lives and, to your point, whether they want to go to work that day or not. So in the legal world, managers are a huge risk factor. But to put a positive spin on that, to manage legal risk, training, good training of supervisors and all the things that HR people already know is so critical. It's really critical. And Sarah and I have talked about this a lot, but that's one thing HR can put on the to-do list and on the budget list is training on the legal stuff. But I don't want to focus this episode on that. I really want to focus on managers and engagement. So how can managers impact
So great question. And to kind of link back to our last episode about those 12 engagement questions and employee engagement, involvement and enthusiasm of our employees, 70% of the variance in team engagement is determined solely by the manager.
70%?
Yes.
Holy
So
cow.
this is
That
the
surprises
lever,
me.
right? This is the lever that you need to pull on to increase your overall organizational engagement. Without getting it right as managers, we don't really stand a chance to improve it. And when you think about why people are put in positions of management, there's pretty much two reasons. One, they've been an amazing individual contributor, right? So they've done a job really well, and then someone says, we should have you lead the people that do that job. Or they've just been there the longest. Right? And we're like, well,
Never the right reason.
You're next in line. But great management requires a really specific skill set, specific mindset. When we think about those 12 questions, which were overwhelming, right?
Yes.
Managers need to cultivate.
I will confess, it was overwhelming to hear
proficiency in all of them. And 45% of managers don't get any training at all, right? And so we're putting them in a really important seat and basically saying, best wishes. And most people are learning how to do the job by trial and error. That's how I learned it. I mean, I can literally put myself back into being like 25 years old, managing people, and just shocked at how different my day was, how different I needed to spend my time, things I needed to be good at that I had not. Giving another adult feedback is weird.
It is for me.
It
I
is
thought
for-
it's not just me.
No, most people do not want to have that conversation. Telling another adult, what the expectations of the job are can be weird for some people.
Especially when they're older than you. Can I just say that out
there's
loud?
Yes.
Right, as we talk about generations there, and I did a series of generational differences in the workplace. Boy, is that awkward.
I mean, it's
can
just
be. It can
different.
Be.
It's just different, and we're expecting people to just figure it out. And some people might be really talented, but for the most part, I don't think that's an effective strategy for our managers, is to say, like, best wishes. We'll hope things are going well. And it's really overwhelming for them. And then their engagement dips, right? So if they're not prepared to do the job, they're also not having fun at work. They're under an inordinate amount of stress from the bottom and the top. They're kind of getting it both ways, right? They're not feeling great about the pressures that are coming from above, and they're not feeling like they're doing a great job below. And so their engagement suffers, and then that just kind of bleeds out. And so
got it. So if managers themselves are not engaged, that's going to be a trickle down.
That's really bad. Yeah, exactly. Right. And some of that might be because of their ability to be effective. Right. So what are we doing as an organization to put energy and effort into some of those 12 questions? Right. A lot of those questions are, am I being developed? Is someone encouraging my progress? And what are we doing organizationally? This is literally why I have a job, is because most organizations don't know how to do this. And then they realize, oh my gosh, they're not prepared. We need someone to come in and help. So this is where all my energy lives. So I'm really excited to be talking about it today.
So how can, tell us more about it. How can we, as business leaders, as HR departments, how can we support our managers being better at this engagement stuff?
Yeah.
How do we teach them to do it?
Some organizations really have the ability to do this internally, right? They have a learning and development team, and they put a lot of energy. Some people have a budget.
A budget?
Some people call in a favor. I don't know. I think if, like, on a low level cost, right, I would say, do you have somebody that's actively coaching or mentoring new managers within your organization?
Okay.
Sometimes that really helps to not be their manager, right?
Oh, really?
It can be difficult to tell my manager, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to have this conversation. And some managers, you're getting in your check-in and you're talking about the work.
Right.
Right. And it can be useful to have another person within the organization to say, hey, you want to role play that conversation? Hey,
well, that is very insightful. And so HR professionals could help make that connection.
Yeah.
Right? Or make that suggestion.
Yes.
Even. Okay.
Yes. I think
That's
it's,
fantastic.
I do a lot of coaching of managers, and a lot of people don't understand initially, well, why would I need a coach? And pretty quickly they realize it's totally different to get on the phone with someone who's not managing me and who I don't manage. I can admit I'm scared. I can admit I don't know what I'm doing. I can ask a question without thinking through, will that make the person think I don't know how to do my job? So it just kind of neutralizes the space a little bit. So if you have a system where you can say to a new manager, hey, for the first 6 months on your job, and also the mentor gets something out of that, right? They're getting something out of that too. So if you can bake that in, I always think a coach is better than a training, even though I'm someone who does training, right?
We can edit that part.
I mean, I say it on a call. I'm like, look, I can come in and do an amazing training, but these skills are really hard to do. And so a coach can be a phenomenal way to...
So training can set maybe level set.
For sure.
Does that make sense? Level set the whole group so we all are using common vocabulary. Because we train a lot too. And I think same thing. It's like you got to actually exercise the muscle.
Yes.
But maybe the demo.
The training is important. Yes. It gives us common language.
Common
but
language
behavior
and
change
understanding
is so hard. We know that we can't read a book and then we just do the thing. Like accountability and coaching helps.
That's interesting. So training combined with coaching, and coaching, I love that concept that I wasn't familiar with before about having someone that's not in your direct line of supervision. It can also be someone outside the organization. But it could also, if budget is an issue, and people are listening to this, that, my 2024 budget's already set, and this is such a great idea.
Yeah.
There can be another leader within the organization. I love that.
Yeah, someone who does something really well. You could get into a cool pairing system where you're like, oh, this is someone who builds great relationships and is really intentional about it. Let's pair them with a new manager who might be a little more, bottom line, and kind of help them see. And, you could do really creative things there. And that, again, supports engagement and connective tissue within the organization in a way that says, like, we're all a team and we make each other better.
I love that.
Yeah. On the higher end, I think that, again, it's not a mystery what makes effective managers. And a lot of those 12 questions point to some of the mindsets and skills that we need managers to be great at, right? So do you have the mindset around some of the interpersonal dynamics within a team and your influence on it? Do you have the ability to give and set expectations and accountability? Do you know how to motivate others and help them leverage their strengths? Can you give feedbacks? Do you have, those are all really complex, both emotional and technical skills. And there's a ton of training out there, we're one of them, but there's a ton of people who have training that kind of supports the skill development within some of those skills. And so I think if your organization's doing nothing, that would be a great place to say, hey, there might be someone outside who's doing this really well, and we can explore options to bring someone in and work with our new managers, either in an onboarding system or even, you don't even have to be new. I mean, some people are 6 and 10 years in. We have people come to us all the time. We have a program called Manage Like a Boss that kind of goes through, a lot of this. And we have people who've been managing for a decade or more who say like, hey, I've never thought about giving feedback in this way. And if I had, it would have probably made a lot of conversations go differently.
Well, one thing I'm hearing is someone that doesn't live and breathe this all day, every day like you do. So I'm starting a few steps back.
Yes.
I see a lot of performance evaluations and all of that for hourly employees, but also management employees and people who are not single contributors.
Yeah.
And often what people are evaluated on is output.
Yes.
Did you make budget again? Favorite word, but did you make your budget? What was your production?
Yes.
Like maybe they'll talk about employee turnover sometimes not, right? But it's often things like that.
Yep.
Did you, if you're in sales, right? Very output driven, numbers driven. I have not seen a lot of supervisor, manager, let's just call them not just in the evaluation stage, but the expectation stage when we're setting expectations, these engagement skills.
Yep.
So I'm thinking, again, starting from the very beginning here, maybe just adding not all 12 at the same time, because that would be overwhelming. But 1 or 2 as expectations for those folks in their role as a manager, and then working on how to evaluate that at the end, but maybe just saying it out loud.
Yes, I think that's such
one of the expectations of being a leader here is to hit these numbers, because we are a business after all.
Yeah.
But we also need, and then pick the ones that seem most reasonable and applicable.
And you don't even maybe need to get that nitty gritty. I love this idea because this is another easy way to say, congrats, you're a new manager in our system. This is a huge opportunity to help us strengthen our engagement. And that's why we put you in this seat. And when we say engagement, we obviously mean how your team performs and how you hit our bottom lines. But the way that your team feels when they come to work every day is another major way we think about your leadership in your role. Right away, that's mindset, right? That's a mindset about how powerful my seat in this organization is. Like, I have a huge opportunity to impact the way people feel when they come to work every day. I mean, going back to that statistic of only 3 out of 10 of your friends like to go to work every day, you have influence over that number, new manager.
Yeah.
5 people might love to come here every day. And yes, does everybody love a day off? Yes. But generally, they feel valued. They feel seen. They feel like they can do something meaningful at work every day. You influence that more than anything else. And I think that mindset right out of the gate would be a really cool way to onboard
that is
a new manager.
I guarantee you that's a mindset shift.
Yeah.
For me and for a lot of people that are listening.
Yeah.
And I'll just add a little lawyerly phrase we can use. We use it a lot in the ADA world and when we're working with health issues and performance issues in the workplace. But it can be used all the time. Every HR person should have this on a little and say it all the time. How can we help you?
Yeah.
Right? Because I bet for new leaders, new supervisors and managers in particular, when that concept is introduced to them, part of your role, right, is not just training people in the technical skills and making sure there's performance and output, but engagement stuff, I bet it's going to be like deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know that's what I was signing up for when I signed up for this promotion or when I put my hat in the ring, and I do not know what you're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Right? That's fine. I think just owning that and recognizing that and just saying, how can we help you?
Yes.
We're here. Right?
Yeah.
This is new for you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
What
And
can we do?
again, this, I think one of the most important skills for all leaders is self-awareness. I mean, there's really interesting research on self-awareness of like, I'm close enough to this statistic of like 85% of us think we're self-aware, but only like less than 10% of us make the metrics of self-awareness. So this is a difficult skill, like in order to be self-aware.
85% of us are wrong.
Yes, correct.
No, I'm sorry,
I'm sure
75%.
I'm sure we're correct.
75% of us are wrong.
Yeah.
10% are correct when they say.
Yeah, and part of that is because to have true self-awareness, we need other people's opinions, right? We don't get to decide, hey, I do praise really well. To know that, we'd have to ask other people, right?
Yeah.
And so
that would make sense.
I think
when you say it like that,
right? I think some of this is cultivating awareness around with new managers. Hey, what about this do you feel like you might be really strong at? What about this do you think you might need some support in?
Yeah,
we will get input from your team along the way, but that kind of spend the first 6 months on the job, kind of thinking through this lens. And we'll have ongoing conversations with you, either with your manager or your mentor, to say, like, now that I'm in it, I actually don't find it really easy to give praise. Like, I'm not seeing it. My head is so bogged down and feeling stressed that I can't even pick it up, and just kind of orienting them to how to reflect about their job. I mean, I think one of the most common misunderstandings about this idea that you're both working on outcomes and thinking about the experience is that they're like mutually exclusive. That like, well, I just want them to be good at their job. And it's like,
just work harder.
This is an infinity loop. You know what I mean? These two things are very related.
Yeah.
Helping people feel great about, helping them feel praised, helping them feel seen, encouraging their develop, having a friend at work. Those actually do make you better at your job, right? It's not, if you put this in the context of a real example, right? Let's pretend like I'm on a team and I'm really confused about where to start on a project. I feel overwhelmed. I feel stuck.
Yeah.
If some of those things are in place, I'm going to send a Slack or an email to my friend and be like, hey, like, can you get on a call with me? I need to make a project plan and I just don't want to do it. And like, I'm stuck. Like, guess what? That then makes me feel better at my job. I'm going to make a better project plan because I had the relationships, the safety to either ask my manager or someone on my team for help.
Yes.
For collaboration, for input, for feedback. Hey, I made a project plan. Can you look at it before I send it off to the other team? I think it's missing something. So when you put it in the context of a real example, you can see the connectivity between the relationships and the interpersonal stuff and the productivity. I think people, when I think about presenting it and I think about the people who are kind of like curmudgeon-y about it, like
on behalf of all curmudgeons,
yes,
which I may be, spoiler alert, I may or may not be one. Let's call them skeptics.
Yes, that's a better
less judgy.
word. That's a fairer word. Yes, sorry. Yes, yeah.
I mean, I'm a skeptic.
Yeah.
Most lawyers are.
Yeah.
So what do you say to the skeptics?
I would use that example. It's like if I come over to your side and I'm like, okay, I only care about the bottom line. Let's look at how that bottom line gets done differently if some of these other things are in place.
Yeah.
If I'm excited to collaborate, if I'm able to ask for help, if I'm able to admit I don't know what I'm like. If we're not talking about that, then a whole bunch of other things are happening that actually impact that, are not happening.
Yeah.
That actually impact that bottom line. And so
that's
again,
really interesting.
You might be better at some of these things than other things, and that's okay. I think that's the thing I want to say too here. Obviously, we're all going to lean into our strengths, and we should. And there's a lot of interesting research about leveraging our strengths, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And so when that comes to the point, then I love to just tell leaders, like, you're allowed to say, hey, I'm not great at this. I'm really working to do it better. Here's what I need from you to do that. Here's where I'm going to try to catch myself. Like, I'm not someone who's great at giving expectations. I'm just not detailed. I don't like a lot of rigidity. And I've managed people who hate that about me, and I don't get it. And I've managed people that love that about me, right? And so part of that is just learning who on my team really loves clear expectations, and how can I have a conversation with them about, I'm not great at this, so I need you to kind of bring the questions to me, and I'll work on getting better, but like we got to kind of meet in the middle, you know?
I think that in this situation and in others, particularly when people are really nervous about something, which is probably the same thing, frankly, owning it and just saying it out loud just takes the anxiety right out of it. Right? The air goes out of the balloon. And it is life-changing to just say those things out loud. I also, this is just a pet peeve. You may completely disagree with this. I do have a pet peeve about how people sometimes do things incorrectly or hurtfully, and then say, well, that's just not what I am good at. So I think we have to be careful with managers. We say, well, I'm just not good at giving praise, so you can't expect that out of me. I don't think that's the way to go either when it comes to engagement. So I want to make sure people aren't misunderstanding. Maybe the way to go is, that's not a muscle, or that's not something that comes naturally to me, or that's not a muscle I've built up. But I'd like to do better. So I'm looking, small baby steps, right? I'm looking this year at making some improvements in that area. So we're not expecting you to be the very best at this or that. But just saying, well, that's just
100%
HR people hear that. Well, that's just not. That's just not my thing, or I'm not going to be able to. You can move a little. Down the line.
If you say that, right? If it was me, and I get to say this because I'm a coach and I'm not in an organization, or I'm a trainer. If you say I just don't do that, then what you're saying is I just don't create engaged teams.
Right.
At which point I would say, then I just don't want you as a manager in my organization.
What you're saying is you're not doing one of your core competencies. You're just not going to do the work.
You're just not doing it. It's like, this is what we know. No one invented this because they think they want people to feel good. It's from years of research about what creates engaged employees. And so, but you are allowed to say, and I think it's great modeling, this is not a muscle. And I love that. This is not a muscle. This is what I'm trying to do to grow. I'm inviting you into that growth as my direct report. We're in a reciprocal, and I want you to do the same with me, right? And that hits on a lot of these engagement questions. I want to make one more point of something you just said about saying what's in your head out loud, because I coach a lot of managers, and
I'm horrible with filter.
I can't tell you how many times. Sometimes I'm like, my job is so easy as a coach, because the manager comes to me, and again, I'm a neutral party. I don't manage them. They don't manage me. So they're just like talking out loud. And so much of my coaching is, you need to go say that exact thing to the person, between you. And you need to have the conversation that you're having in your head by yourself. Out loud, right? And that's scary, right? And that's where a coach can start to practice, like, okay, let's do it right now with me. Let's just try it. I do a lot of role playing.
Right? With expectation setting, with giving feedback, with all the I'm mentioning the parts that hardest for me. Other people are like, those are the easy parts. But those would be the parts that would be hardest for me.
And that's where coaching or mentor can be that. This is where you're building a little bit of that muscle.
That's
before you do it in real life with the person that you actually manage.
So we're just about out of time. But I'm going to ask you a question that probably is not that important, but I can't stop thinking about it. You mentioned in the last episode that having a close friendship, we're not, Gallup says a best friend. We're revising that because I'm going to advocate for a revision.
I'm glad I brought up that it was controversial because it landed for you.
It is for me. A close friendship at work. How can managers have any control or influence over that?
I think some of that is about baking in some of this kind of, am I seen as a whole being? When you start team meetings, what is the vibe? What is the energy? Do we have time to actually get to know one another? When we're having retreats, is it just boom, bottom line? You're correct in that, what I wouldn't want people to hear is like, I have to now create friendships.
You're going to be best friends.
I have a feeling, and I'll have to
do it.
Maybe I'll come back and we'll just do one on best friends at work. But I think some of that is about, again, that connective tissue and that energy that's being propelled by some of these other questions. And then actually this is a product of it.
Okay.
You know?
That makes so much sense to me. So that's like an output measure
Yes.
of how engaged people are.
Yes, exactly.
But not one of the, as you put it, one of the levers that moves the output.
Yes. That's what I'm pretty sure is true. So I said, like, maybe I'll have to come back and talk about it. But I think it's an output of
that makes a lot of sense.
creating a space where if you're facilitating collaboration, if you're facilitating that's just going to happen.
Because so we were talking before we started typing, we both have kids, and Sarah has kids, and I think, okay, I've got all these play dates. Things I have to do for my kids. I have to set up play dates for the people I manage too.
Please do not go do weird stuff. Do not go. I would be very sad.
I'm out if I have to bus back for the people I manage.
You don't have to
in addition to my kids.
Worry about some of the other questions.
Okay.
First.
That was very liberating. I'm glad we ended on
Glad
that.
we covered
Thank
it.
you so much for joining us,
Yeah,
Chrissy.
thanks for having me.